Hello friends, I am Rachel Archelaus and I want to share the story of my grandmother's transition into being a spirit because I just had the coolest experience of death and it was completely positive, it was glorious, and I really learned a lot about how we can move through these things without feeling negative emotion, and it's just a cool story. I think you'll like it. So let me just preface this by saying that I don't think every death experience needs to be like this. I don't think negative emotion is bad. I don't think grieving is bad. I don't think being sad is bad. And I fully expect that there will be scenarios where I do feel those things. But this time, because I haven't lived near my grandmother for a long time, because I have healed my relationship with her, because of my connection with the spirit world, as it were, it was really different, and I got to participate fully, still living in another state from her, because I'm able to visit with her in spirit. So I just want to tell you the story. So my grandma has been sick for a really long time and in pain for a really long time. So the first thing that was true for me is that when I found out that she was in the hospital and she didn't want to go home, like she was ready to go, I was happy for her. I was like relieved for her that she could have a different experience now, because I know from firsthand knowledge that people don't really die. I'm house sitting for my grandfather, and my deceased grandmother has been visiting me all the time. I mean, since childhood, I've been able to talk to my relatives who've passed on, so that's a personal truth for me. So it can be sad to lose someone physically, especially if you're used to seeing them all the time. But because I wasn't used to seeing her all the time, for me, I just had that experience of opening and really being grateful for the experience that she'll be able to have once she passes. So that was number one. My dad flew down the next day to be with her and to help her through this. I stayed in Connecticut because I'm here watching other people's property, and I started checking in with her. So when I would go upstairs at night to go to bed, before I would go to sleep or even meditate for myself, I would like take my spirit, pretty much like go visit her and check in on her body and her mental space. And the first few visits, I was only able to really understand the wholeness of what was happening. Like, she wasn't cognitively there. I was just feeling how her body was reacting to stuff. And she was a little worried and scared at first. And then a couple days later, she calmed down and got really quiet and peaceful. And in those days, she was still opening her eyes and looking at people. She spoke the first day that she was home, and was really glad that my dad was there, and her daughter and her grandson were there, and granddaughter. So she felt really loved. And then a couple days later, on my nightly visit, it was a different scene. There were more spirits there. Her spirit guides were there, and we ended up surrounding her bed and all holding hands. And before you knew it, her spirit was coming up out of her body, and this like vortex of light opened up. I mean, it sounds really cliche, but that's exactly what I saw. And she left her body and went into the light and turned around and looked at us and smiled and was so happy, and she felt so free. And then later on that night, I saw her. She didn't visit me, but I saw her there, and she showed herself to me at a time where me and her had our closest relationship when I was a kid, and she had her wig on, which I had forgotten she'd worn wigs. It's been so long. She had her little dog, Muffy, her little chihuahua, and it was in the house in Monroe that I used to visit her at. And so that was my like second confirmation that she had passed, because that's what spirits do. They can represent themselves in the way that they feel best, and usually it has to do with who they're speaking to. So she might show herself differently to my father, to her daughter, I don't know, but that was our moment together there where we used to have the most fun and were the most connected. So I felt really good about that, and the way that I was interacting with her after that really changed. After that, it was super clear to me that what remained alive was just a body, and it wasn't her anymore. And I didn't really know that that happened. I was really expecting when I woke up that my dad would call and say, oh, she passed, and it was like 2:30 in the morning, because that's when this whole ceremony happened. And I didn't get that. Actually, she lived for 2 more days. But I really felt like, oh, she was passed. I felt so much joy for her. I felt really excited. And I didn't tell my dad what happened because I didn't want to put my experience of her death on him. I wanted him to be able to experience it for himself however he wanted to. But the next day, he did ask me a question. He wanted me to check in and see how things were going with her. And I asked him if he felt differently the last 2 days, if he felt like she was really there or not. And he said, yeah, she hasn't opened her eyes, and he does feel like it's really just the body hanging on. And so I told him what happened and what I experienced with her, and it really helped him feel good. And I wasn't expecting that. I was a little afraid to tell him what I saw and participated in, because again, I didn't want to take this experience away from him, but it turns out that he felt really calmed and glad that really, he had more confirmation that she did go to heaven, in his words. And I think that that's really cool. I never really expect my experience to have a positive effect on others with such a deep-seated belief, such as what is the afterlife, right? Everyone has their own version of that, and it's really amazing to me that like my experience could offer him some peace through his mother's passing. So that's really cool. And I was so grateful and honored to be part of that, and a little surprised too that I've had no tears about this. I mean, I really feel this overflowing sense of peace and joy at this process. And it makes sense to me now how other cultures celebrate death, because now I can see the celebration in it. I mean, it's really amazing. It's really cool. And yeah, I haven't felt negative emotion, and I haven't done anything I didn't want to do. Like, sometimes we feel obligation to do things or say things or be there or not be there, and that's such a complicated part of this, but I'm learning that it doesn't have to be. We can really do what is best for us in that moment, whatever that is, and that's okay. And so I just wanted to share this with you, because this is my first experience of this kind of participation in death and having such an open view of it. This was really cool, and I hope that I get to experience this again when it's time for that to happen once more in my life. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about this, I'm really happy to answer them. If you want to hear more experiences that I have around this kind of thing, let me know, because I love sharing. And I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you very soon. Lots of love. Bye bye.